When was the last time you had someone visit a property but they were not happy with what they saw? You will notice that most people who express unhappiness, they do not usually say the house is ugly or the quality is bad. Most of them usually say, this is not what I expected, or that's not what I thought it looked like when I looked in the website. So there's a clear difference in expectations, and that's not easy to handle. I understand that. But what I'm trying to highlight today, when someone has looked into a listing through your website and then contacted you, that means they've already built up something in their mind. They've imagined how the property would look in real life, and they came to you with predetermined expectations. And this difference in expectations costs money and time. It burns down the time slot that you have booked for him to visit the property, which you could have spent with some other buyer that could have been more potential. It burns down the time of the buyer who spent time traveling and spending time looking into the property. And it also reduces the trust by that buyer in you for your next listing recommendations. All right. Now, you have seen from time and time again that we have said that virtual tours can solve this problem by removing that false expectations. But today I'm going to put that to the test. All right. Today we are going to diagnose and determine if interactive virtual tours can actually stop this from happening, or at least reduce this from happening. Or is it just a better way of displaying what photos are already showing on the website? All right. So we'll deep dive into public forums on what people commented, and we'll also look into real data from different companies to determine if what I'm talking about actually makes sense. So we're going to find out if a virtual tour can actually reduce the amount of false expectations people build up when looking into properties, or our photos are just enough and you do not have to worry about getting a virtual tour software. All right. So in this video, I'm not going to talk about our product. I'm not going to talk about WPVR in general, right? I'm really going to discuss the whole scenario so that you understand if you should actually start using virtual tours or not. Okay, so let's begin. What buyers and professionals are actually saying about using photos for real estate listing. So let's start with the buyer side of the story, because that's where that doesn't meet my expectation question comes about. Okay. Now, I found this thread about a real estate post on a forum, which is a generic forum. People can discuss just about anything in this forum, and that's totally fine. But there I found a specific thread regarding real estate where a person talked about how the pictures does not match the reality. One user, Jesper Frank, put it as well as anybody could. He compared house listings to dating profiles, and he said that pictures and description on property listings are no good unless you actually visit and see it for yourself. Okay, so according to him, the realtors are not really hiding anything, but what they're doing is they're not revealing everything, which he described in his words as willful ignorance. Okay, so that's a clear sign that this person was probably not happy with visiting properties because it didn't match his expectations with the photos, right? Now, I'm not saying you do that, all right? I'm not saying you put up images that doesn't match the real property, but many have, and that has already tarnished the trust in most buyers online. Okay, now this is just one scenario. I've also found another forum. This one's called Bigger Pockets, and one of the largest real estate investing forums out there. Okay, here I literally found a thread that's called Advice on Listing Agent Misrepresenting Property. Okay, so in this thread, a buyer has expressed disappointment on a listing agent for not being transparent at all, and it has broken their trust into that agent. Right now, the buyer is thinking whether they should go back and line item every appliance and fixture in the sales contract just to protect themselves. Now, there are many other forums online where you'll find similar discussions happening, all right? But I've also came across an article by Benzinga from last year where they talked about how a person expressed that they know people are using wide-angle lenses to show that property rooms are larger than they actually are. Okay, so there's one particular person who said that just by looking at the photos, he can tell that if they're going to look into a normal house when visiting, or are they going to drive 40 miles to see a promised spacious house just to see that it has 9 by 9 foot rooms, which is much smaller than the photos provided because that was captured using a wide-angle lens. In case you don't know, a wide-angle lens makes what appears in front much wider than it really is, so it can make a closet look like a suit. Okay, so that's what was claimed, and that's what Benzinger wrote around to express that photos and certain details on the listing pages are often misrepresented by real estate agents. Again, as I said, maybe you do not do that, but many have done, and it has tarnished the trust of buyers online. Okay. Now, I couldn't find the specific Reddit thread from where they wrote this, all right? But at that time, that Reddit thread was available. So they got that real data, and probably now the thread is closed down for some reason. But what they talked about is a real problem. It exists out there. Okay. So I'm going to put a link about that in the description in case you want to check out the article. All right. I've also found a content piece on Florida Realtors, which is a real trade publication, where they discussed a similar scenario. They also claim that some states are now requiring disclosure in case listing photos have been digitally edited or altered. So here, a real estate professional called Ryan Breyer discussed how some clients fail for a property promotion where it looked like the house had a lakefront and they could see the sunset reflected on the water of the lake. All right. But when they visited in person, they saw that the house was in fact not beside the lake at all. It was across the road, and their view to the lake was partially blocked by a neighbor's home. All right. So this is what Breyer described in his own words as that's definitely not what they pictured. All right. And this is coming from a real estate professional, someone who has been in the business for years, and he shared that this is actually happening. And I told you at the beginning that when a person contacts you, they have already pictured how the house might be in real life. They have a predetermined expectation. And when they come and see that it doesn't match at all, it's pure disappointment. You will find a similar pattern on review sites where people drop reviews on real estate agencies based on their experience of what they've seen or the listings that was presented to them. Okay, so if you look into different lower end ratings of some agencies, such as 2 stars, 3 stars, you will see people are complaining about misrepresentation or not being transparent, right? Even some of them complain about their experience with the visit, but that's a different scenario. Today we're discussing if using photos is the right call. But from review sites, I've clearly seen that it's a trust barrier. There is a recent review on Trustpilot on a UK-based agency where a person shared that the photos online appeared to be digitally enhanced. And once they have visited, their whole experience has broke their complete trust in the agency, not just the property. Okay, so that's a real case. If you are using digitally enhanced photos and when they visit a property with you and they see it doesn't match, it can break their trust in you completely. They're not going to look for different listings through you. They might just move to someone else. Now, based on what I presented so far, you can see that what people actually face is that when they enter a property, they instantly think, this is not what I expected, or it's smaller than I thought, right? And instantly the disappointment began before they even took the tour, right? So the main thing what I'm trying to point out here is that when you have a photo, even if you did not digitally enhance it, it cannot carry the scale of the room, right? Let's say you just honestly took a photo and posted it, all right? But the person doesn't really know how large the room is, what it would actually look like if the walls are actually more bright or more dull than what it came in your camera photos, right? So they picture it, they make a guess, they imagine what this would be. And when they come to your property and when that imagination does not match, it's no longer a question about whether you are true or wrong. It's a question about, is it going to serve what they expected? And obviously it's not. So they instantly become negative and they no longer consider making a decision on the property, right? So the bottom line is, if you are using photos, all right, first of all, there's a trust issue that I talked about before, that people nowadays do not trust online because you can easily edit digital photos, but that's fine. Most of you don't do that. You might not enhance that, but it still keeps a dilemma in the buyer's mind that, okay, maybe this is not 100% correct. At the same time, if you're using wide-angle lenses, then obviously it's going to appear larger than what it actually is. It's going to create disappointment. Eventually, you're going to lose the buyer, even if they come to visit and discuss with you for hours, right? At the same time, as I said, photos do not have the ability to carry the scale. It doesn't have the ability to carry the direction. So it doesn't give them an exact sense of how it would feel when they're walking in the property, okay? So they make a guess, they come to your property, and if it doesn't meet that guess, then they are already disappointed, and it becomes much difficult for you to convince them that this would be the right property for them. What actually happens if you swipe photos for interactive virtual tours? Now, so far I've showed you different threads on different forums on how buyers are discussing about the scenario. I've talked about the buyer side of the story, how photos create wrong expectations, right? But what happens if you go to the flip side by using virtual tours? Does it actually work? Does data back it up? Let us look at real data to analyze if using a virtual tour actually improves that scenario. Does it reduce wasted showings? According to a report from Realtor.com, using virtual tours can reduce wasted showings by up to 40%. That just supports the claim that virtual tours are definitely the better option because people come with an expectation. If the expectation doesn't meet, that's when you have wasted showings. And if virtual tours cut down 40% of that number, that means that it is definitely creating the right expectations in more people than when you're using photos. Does virtual tour attract more interested buyers? From the same research by Realtor.com, they found out that listings with a virtual tour get 87% more views and 95% more phone inquiries compared to the ones that do not have a virtual tour. On other note, Coldwell Bank, one of the oldest and largest residential real estate franchises in USA, ran their own research and they found out that 77% Americans prefer taking a virtual tour before they consider going for a live visit. So this tells you that people would find more interest, they'd be more willing to explore a property if they had gotten an option to take a virtual tour because it gives them a realistic experience. Does virtual tours help close more deals? Well, let's look into this. Researchers from Texas Tech University's Rawls College of Business analyzed MLS transaction data across 4 different US markets, tracking over 143,000 listings where they compared similar homes with and without 3D walkthroughs. Well, the ones that had virtual tours closed 31% faster and sold for over 9% more from the market value. A separate study was done where they used a completely different method. They used standard comparative market analysis, and this went to the same direction. It just showed that the ones that had virtual tours actually sold faster and sold for more than the market value. Now, apart from researchers, let me give you data from a real estate firm, all right? A Chicago-based commercial real estate firm called Metrospace once reported that they had their sales and engagement stalled for a while, even they had a strong portfolio. But then they decided to incorporate virtual tours, and they reported that they had 70% more property viewing interactions, their closing time reduced by 40%, and they were getting 50% increased inquiries from international clients who wouldn't have visited the property otherwise. On the residential side, a property management group working with the LCP Media reported that using unit-level virtual tours drove 40% more leads and 72% more signed leases compared to when they were using photos and video walkthroughs. As you can see from the last two, there were different companies, different type of properties, but they had the same output. They got better results from using virtual tours. One more number I'd like to put up today is a data from Nodal View, who usually tracks engagement for thousands of agencies. But I'm not putting this out from a marketing perspective. I'm talking about this from a customer behavior perspective. What they reported is that people spend 2 to 5 minutes on pages that have a self-guided virtual tour. Well, that's exactly the time you need to walk through different rooms, go through the property at your own pace without anybody asking you to, right? So if someone is spending that much time on the page, it means that they're taking a good look at the property and getting an inquiry from that. It means that they have really thought about it. They've really understood how the property looks like. Okay. Now, the good thing about this data is that once they have visited a virtual tour, they get a good understanding of the spatial distribution of the house. So they do not get confused that if the room is too large or too small, and they have a realistic expectation of how the house would be once they visit in person. Now, obviously, this would be true if you do not enhance the photos digitally, because it is possible to enhance 360 photos. But if you take real photos and use that to create the virtual tour, then it would actually mean the person taking the virtual tour is getting a real experience. And when they call you for an actual property visit, there's no expectations to contradict. So once they visit, they're not going to complain that, hey, it's not what I expected. Rather, if they have any complaint, it's going to be about some specific details that you might explain. It'll make the job so much easier for you. Photos versus virtual tours, the practical implication. Now, so far you've seen in the forums people talking about their problems, and I have also presented to you with real data online that proves that virtual tours have generated more results compared to photos. But why is that? How come a photo has different impact than having a virtual tour? Well, this is where I would like to call it by the statement, photos show you the property, virtual tours let you understand it. By what this means is that whenever you capture a photo, it's a single snapshot, right? Even if you have 30 of them, it's 30 separate snapshots that are not connected. People have to stitch that in their mind to understand how the property works. So even if you have a great photographer who's taking awesome pictures of different angles of the house, different rooms and everything, the buyer still needs to imagine that in their head, that okay, so this is the bedroom, from there I'll walk out like this and walk into the living room, and from there, if I want to go to the balcony, this is where I go. So all of those, he needs to connect the dots by looking into the image. And obviously this doesn't always play out right. What you imagine may not match with what someone else imagined, right? At the same time, a photo cannot capture the spaciousness of the room. It cannot tell you the height of the floor, right? You cannot understand how much above you will be the ceiling, right? It cannot tell you the distance from your bedroom to the balcony unless you have written it down, but they cannot imagine it. Okay, that's where the contrary of the virtual tour comes in. While the photos show you, a virtual tour can show it to you, plus let you understand how it would be in real life. So by the things that I just talked about, you can easily judge the directions of the house from where to where you have to move. You can easily understand the spaciousness of the room. Is it too large? Is it too small for your own requirements? You can also get an estimate of how tall the rooms would be, or what the distance from one room to the another would be. It would be a good assumption, close to reality, right? It's not going to be 100%, but obviously it's going to have a higher realistic experience than compared to photos. So that's why whenever you're using photos for a property, which used to work in the past because photos and videos were the best rule of thumb back then, but in 2026, when you have high technology, why not use them? Okay, it's no longer the time for using photos and videos. It's time to use VR. It's time to use AI. You need to use all the technologies that gives you the advantage. All right, and that's why really comes the argument that why aren't we using virtual tools more often, right? So as a realtor right now, you have a lot of different skepticism around virtual tour software. But think it this way: why are large brands like Zillow incorporating virtual tours more often, right? For beginners, for new realtors, it's okay. You guys just starting out, so maybe you've decided that, okay, let's start with pictures, then we will upgrade. That's totally fine. If you're in the industry for a year or more, then it's high time that you understand that virtual tours really is going to get you the better output compared to photos and videos. Okay, so here's my final verdict. Upon comparison, what we have done is we have validated that there is genuine issues people face when you're using photos. I've discussed about different threads where people have complained that it didn't meet their expectations when they visited the house. Even a real estate professional shared his knowledge on what others were doing to clients using fake digitally edited images, right? So I've already showed you all of those to validate that people are actually facing problems when you have photos of properties on your website, right? At the same time, what we did next was we tried to validate that is it true that a virtual tour improves the experience? Well, the data says so, because as you saw, after using virtual tours, realtors are getting 40% less wasted showings. 77% of the people have stated they would prefer to get a virtual tour before an actual visit. Virtual tours have resulted in 40% faster closing rate and 9% higher sales value than the ones that didn't have a virtual tour. And the reports from Chicago Commercial or the data from MetroSpace already proves that a virtual tour gives you positive results, higher results than when you had photos for your real estate virtual tour. So the final verdict here from me is that you should be shifting from using photos to virtual tours. Now, I would personally not say remove all the photos, keep them, it's fine, but include a virtual tour so that people can experience it. All right, it gives you more opportunity to capture the right buyer. The buyer has a better opportunity to understand what they're getting into even before they contact you. So the buyers that you're actually dealing with are people who won't have problems with the structural definition of the house. If they have questions, it's going to be some other details, all right, which I'm sure you'll be more than happy to discuss with the buyer when they visit your property. Okay, so the final verdict in 2026, you should start using virtual tour for your real estate properties. All right. Now that I've explained all of that, all this time, as I told you, I'm not here to promote the product. I'm not here to promote WPVR. Still, I would like to share with you that in case you have a website in WordPress, you can give WPVR a try for creating virtual tours, because first of all, you can start for free. You don't really need money to get started. And once you see that it's something it suits you, and you want to go for the advanced features, or once you see that for about 5 properties which you can create with the free, your virtual tours are doing well, then you can consider upgrading for adding the virtual tours to the rest of the properties. Okay, so this is just a quick recommendation, that since you have gone through this whole video, which means you are trying to get rid of your dilemma that should I start using virtual tours and stop using photos. I'm sure by now you know that virtual tours deliver higher results for realtors. So in this case, start using the virtual tour. It's not really about WPVR. If you don't want to use our tool, you want to use some other tool, it's totally fine. All right, you have no obligation there. All right, but if you have a WordPress site, I'm just saying you could give it a try, as it's free to get started. All right, so I will also leave a link in the description for WPVR in case you want to use the tool. Plus, I'll be leaving the links to all the other contexts that I used throughout this video to prove to you with data that how people are facing problems with photos, and the data that proves that virtual tours have generated more results, so that you can actually verify that whatever I said is not made up. I actually did my research. We already know from our data from our tool, but I didn't present you any data from our tool. I presented data that is out there, that is real, from real users, from real reports, so that you know that whatever I'm saying today is genuine. All right, so all of those will be in the description. All right, and if you have any question, you're always welcome to reach out to us. You can leave a comment. We'd really appreciate that. In case you are a realtor and you have a good experience with virtual tours, I would really appreciate if you could drop a comment about it. It would really help everybody else out who are thinking about using virtual tours for real estate promotions. All right, so thanks for watching. I'll be back with more videos like this and more educational videos soon. All right, take care.